Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about funky stuff on the IBM I. So this is our regular bite-sized training session, and in this session we're going to provide some thought-provoking ideas for the things that you can do on the IBM I that maybe you think you haven't come across, or you think you might not be able to do with your existing skill sets. And we're going to show you using a browser technology some of the things that we can use to smarten up the output rather than the 5250 screen. In the bite-sized training sessions, really designed, we run one every month. It lasts for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Really encourage you to get involved. If you have any questions, any recommendations for future bite-sized training, then feel free to send us some details over, and we'll build a specific bite-sized training for that in the future. Okay, so what we're going to talk about predominantly is open source products on the IBM I. And open source products came around quite a few years ago, and they were originally delivered as part of the license program suite on the IBM I. So when you look at, if you did go to the menu, go Litpugum and take option 10, you'll see a list of all of the options within there. You'll see an open source products, and it had various placeholder option numbers for each of the open source products, and they will be loaded through the PTF system into the source product 5733 ops. And you can see from the list that they started to build up. Down at the bottom of the list, you've got options 12, 13, 14, and 15. So the intention was IBM were going to use these placeholder names and fill them with future open source products. But actually, it grew so big that they had to rethink this. And what they now have come up with as part of the ACS product is this open source package manager. So basically, you log on to your ACS product administrator, you gain access to the session, and then you take the option for open source package management. And it gives you a list of all the packages that are currently installed on your system, and you can administer all of those from here. So you don't need to load them through the PTF system anymore. And you can see that the actual number of products have grown significantly. So from here you can install them, you can update packages, and you can see what else is available. And the repository is the IBM I open source repository. That doesn't stop you loading other open source products from other repositories, but this one is used specifically for the IBM repository. But as you can see, it's become much easier now to install open source products. Why would we use open source products on the IBM I, and what makes open source products more attractive now than ever before? And for me, there's three simple reasons. First one is frameworks. We'll come on to that in a minute. Second one, frameworks. And the third option, frameworks. Frameworks are a very, very key part of open source products. But what is a framework? A framework is a set of code or a program, a system that's written by the open source community, and it's freely available to use. And it's freely available to use under license, which gives all sorts of copyright facilities. But it doesn't cost you anything to download it or run it. But you do have to respect the copyrights of the original authors. You can download it, you can develop it, you can collaborate with anybody else in the same way that other open source community members do. You can upload your version of the open source and so on, make it freely available to everybody else. And this is the beauty of frameworks. They're written by somebody else for you to use. Is it free? Yes, is the answer. It's free like a family heirloom. So if you inherit a Ferrari, the Ferrari becomes yours. You don't have to pay for it, but you then have to fit tyres, put fuel in, service it, and this is where the this is where the open source community generate their income from, and that's important. They need to be able to generate an income, otherwise it becomes free software that's shelfware. Because when these people find a way of making an income, they leave the source behind, and you're left holding the baby as such. But in the open source community, the open source companies offer a package to provide you with support and so on. So, and also professional services if you wanted them to bespoke something for you specifically, or you wanted them to provide you with a support package so that if you have issues, then you've got somebody to phone. So yes, it's free, but if you're starting to use these products within your business, it's wise to find an open source community member that can support you and have a regular contract in place with them. What about security when you're running open source products on the IBM I? Well, I'm not a security expert, but looking at the facts, these are the facts as I see them. The IBM I is reputed to be one of the most robust and secure platforms out there. A lot of banks and financial institutions use these, so somebody's made the decision that it's a secure platform. I know that it has multi-layers of securities and features and so on, and it gets really, really complicated, way beyond my capability. So my advice to you is to go and speak to a security expert. But the upshot is that the IBM I can be secured, it can be made robust. We just need to find a way of fitting, ticking all the boxes for you in your environment. But obviously you need to be aware of what you're trying to secure. So don't go looking for security products that cost hundreds of thousands of pounds when you're in an environment that doesn't require that level of spending. So when we look at open source languages, the most popular languages in 2020, and the source is down at the bottom of the screen if anybody's interested in checking this up, is the most popular one is JavaScript, and JavaScript has been in the top 1 or 2 for some considerable years now, along with HTML, CSS, but you can see the list going down there. JavaScript traditionally is a language that's used on the client side, so it's a language that's embedded within the web page, and it's the component that makes things active. So it sort of lightens up the HTML page that's been delivered to the browser. But traditionally, it was only client-side based, and you needed something more robust on the server side. But what's happened with JavaScript over the recent years is that they've developed a product called Node.js, which is JavaScript, but JavaScript on server side and client side. So that now, when we talk about JavaScript, we're also talking about Node.js within that 69%. So who uses open source? And I've taken the most popular open source language, being Node.js or JavaScript, we just discussed. These are some of the companies that are using open source products using Node.js on there. And these are not IBM related, but this is worldwide on other platforms. And that's another point in open source becomes open platform as well in many cases. So there are some big names out there. Obviously, they're looking at this and they're taking open source seriously. So it's something that's only going to grow and improve. Okay, in this session, I'm going to use an open source platform called NodeRun. And NodeRun is a full stack development environment that's made available to us by a company called Profound Logic. We are an authorized partner of Profound Logic. And the reason why I'm using this full stack development is because it's free to use. It runs on an IBM I. You can register with this product. You can then look at some of the applications in open source that other people have developed. You can copy those, which is technically known as to fork an application within the open source community. You can chop and change it. You can create your own. You can make those available to others, and they provide this platform for you for free. If you wanted to, you could actually implement this open source Node.js on your IBM I, and there's a version that can be installed on your IBM I from Profound Logic. So if you want any more information on that, give us a call directly and we'll discuss that with you. So what is the difference between RPG, LE and Node.js? Traditionally, I'm referring to the IBM I because our sort of proprietary language is RPG. So I'm just covering the main differences. RPG uses a synchronous process, which basically means that it runs an instruction, waits for that instruction to finish, then it runs another instruction. So it's a process that starts at the beginning, follows the logic until the end, and then finishes. And it uses stated program variables. So a numeric variable is a number, an alpha is a string, and a date is a date, and so on. Within Node.js, it uses an asynchronous approach, so it's more event-driven. So you might have processes running simultaneously, which have no interaction with each other. So you might have a timer function that's sitting on the screen that will wake up after so many seconds. That won't interrupt the flow of everything else that's going on that web page. So it is a sort of different methodology to what you would consider within the RPG framework. The other thing is that you have these loosely typed program variables. So if you see from the example below, if we set the field called amount to be a number, 125.99, we could also change that variable to be an ABC and vice versa. And it has no concept of stated program variables. Within the language itself, it gives you the ability to find out what's in that variable and determine whether it is a number or whether it's a string or a date or whatever. But you can reuse variables. So obviously that's not particularly useful in a commercial environment where we're committing stuff into a database and the database says, I'm only going to allow a numeric value in this numeric field. So those are some of the main differences. The way that the programs are handled is also very different. Within the Node.js framework, the synchronous processes are linked together with a process called callbacks. And callbacks are the ability for you to check what that event is doing and has it finished. And then you can control the flow of the program through these callbacks. It gets quite very complicated. So it's not something I'm going to go through an example today. Okay, so I'm going to go into some examples just to finish off and show you what we can achieve on the IBM I. First of all, I'm just going to take you to the Profound Logic web page just to I put a placeholder in the notes so you can see here more details on the Node Run platform. I'll leave you to explore that in your own time, but just from a reference point of view, you can come here and look at information. So if I go to my first example, charts and graphs, here's the Node Run platform. I'm just going to simply launch the application. And we'll see from here, this is the application running on an IBM I. So here we have some graphs presented in various different guises. We can then use a drop-down box to change the theme. So the data remains the same, it's just the look and feel. So it's quite easy to plug these chart functions in and then change the theme behind it by using some a different CSS file. But these graphs are all database driven components. So what we've done is we've attached each of the graphing functions to a database table, and we've specified where the data comes from, what the selection criteria is, what the Y and the X axis are, and the widget itself builds that automatically. So there is no coding involved in any of these examples that you see on the screen, and I'll show you the actual code, the program code that's running this whole page. But yes, you can now start to use these functions within your applications running off the IBM I, where traditionally on the 5250 screen you can't do that. So just to show one other example where we've got a chat session taking place between the number of parties. This is running again on IBM I, so we provide a URL where people can log into. I can't show you this live because I've got nobody at the other end to chat to, but this is a screenshot. A typical John and Lisa have logged on. They're having a dialogue between themselves using an IBM I. Okay, so just quickly going back to the chart program. This is the Node.js code. Oops, sorry. Let's go back a page. This is the Node.js code that's running that entire program. So literally, it's starting the function, we've got a display, and then you've got a loop checking the selections of the drop-down box, and it redisplays the screen when it's changed. There's nothing in there. There's no database access. There's no building of the chart function. That's all done in the screen design of the actual chart page. So as I said before, we've just onto each of those chart function widgets, we've attached a database, and we've said what columns to use and what the selection criteria is, and it automatically builds that within the charting function. So from a development point of view, there are using these widgets, these open source products that have already been pre-coded for you, it then gives you a lot less work to do, and therefore speeds up the development time when you're building your own applications. So some more examples. There's a chess function that runs on the IBM I. Not something I encourage you to use when you're at work, but I'm just saying from an example point of view, it is possible to run these things. Dashboards. If you've got it in a manufacturing environment or a sales environment, you want to see publish information on the big screens to make everybody aware of what's taking place. These are some really great examples of how to do that. You've got a table that gives you some information here. It's just a straightforward grid. But then you've got a graph and different various formats, pie charts and so on. As I say, great for big screens there out in the shop floor. Conference booking system. Here we have a system where we've got a conference that's taking place over 3 days. So we've got Tuesday, the 13th and the 12th of November and so on. We've got a Wednesday, we've got Thursday. And on each of these days, you've got the agenda broken down here, and you can just book yourself into these agendas by clicking on the plus. So if I wanted to go and see that seminar, I'll click that. And then if I go to my schedule, view my schedule, it tells me what my schedule is for the 3 days and so on. Most of it being lunch by the looks of it. Okay, so there's a collaborative whiteboard. Again, similar to the chat session, we can have a whiteboard that people can log into, and using the selected colors at the top. It's a very basic whiteboard, but it gives you the ability to click on the color and then draw with your mouse or your finger if you've got touch screen. And then everybody else can see what you're drawing on their screen at a remote location. So let me just, I think there's one other example. Oh, I've lost my place, just bear with me for 2 seconds. Sorry, that was the last example. Okay, so we come to the end of the examples now, and I'm just exploring what's the point of all this. And there are 2 points really. First of all, everything we see here runs on an IBM. So when somebody comes to you and says, you know, the IBM I or the AS400, generally they refer to it as an AS400, the first thing to do is stop them at that point and educate them and challenge them. It's not an AS400, it's an IBM I, and an IBM I is a world-class server, whereas the AS400 is not capable of any of the things that you've seen today, and it's 20 years old. So for me, that's the first thing that we should challenge. Educate them to believe that what they have now is a world-class server. It's not as they believe it to be, a bit of an old dinosaur that sits in the corner. And the second point is, I believe that before they ask the question, the answer to the question is yes, it can. Whatever they're going to ask you, I'm pretty sure that the server can do it. It's just a question of finding out a way for you to achieve that. So the idea for this session really is just to provoke some thoughts in your mind as to how better you can use these products, these open source products, and other functions within your own environment. And yes, some of the examples that we've seen are a little bit gimmicky and a little bit of fun, but there are bound to be things in what we've seen today that you get asked for on a regular basis. So really try and expand your mind a little bit, if I may say, and if you've got any questions regarding what your users are looking for, by all means come back to us and ask us. If you don't know the answer, we'll try and help you find the answer if we don't know the answer ourselves. But the IBM I is much more capable than traditionally what people have been using them for in the past, and it's worthwhile exploring the opportunities. So that comes to the end of the Byte Sized Training Session for today. These are the social media links to get in touch with me. And by all means, fire off questions, engage. I'm quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter, posting articles on the IBM I. So by all means, respond, get involved, engage. And if you've got any direct questions, just send them back to me. We have some other bite-sized training courses for our output management solution for Interform. These are the ones that we already have running for those. If you have any other particular interests on those, by all means give us a shout. These are the Modernisation strategy bite-sized training courses that we're building. So again, if you've got any thoughts, send the details over and we'll look into it. Okay, and I'll just end the show by giving us a firework display, again running on the IBM I. So thanks for everybody's time, and let me know what you want us to look at in the future, and we'll build something for you. Bye for now.